Tell me about your vision.
Oh, my vision. It's broad and deep. Um, my vision, if I go from the perspective of my book, which is really the key topic today, is I we all have a story. And sometimes it's really hard to share those stories. But in my case, it was a story that kept popping up, those whispers that keep on telling you, you have to do this. And people come into your life that give you the guidance to help you do that. So part of my vision is about the ability to listen to yourself and each other, and to be able to look at your own life story and back into those foundational relationships, which is exactly what my book is about, and how those foundational relationships shape you and then the choices you make as you move forward.
Tell me more about that. Where does it apply to you? How did those all come about? I'd love to hear more.
Well, I say on my title that I'm a mother. And at the end of the day, that's my first priority in my life, my kids. I bring these human beings into the world. It's my job to raise them to be the best human beings they possibly can. I had a rather unusual upbringing. I'm British. I went for career reasons and, chasing the American dream. From London to America, I was in the ad business. I was with Saatchi and Saatchi, the biggest advertising agency in the world at the time in the 80s and 90s. And I had to walk away from that career for a while. But I was able to do that because I grew up with a mother who always told me, you can be and do anything you want with your life and never allow yourself to say no. But it was a very unusual upbringing. And my mother, a week after my 16th birthday, came home from school and she said, I'm done. I've given you and your dad 16 of your years of my life and I'm done. I'm leaving tomorrow. Which, as you can imagine, is a rather shocking thing to tell your 16-year-old child. And the next morning, I went to my Saturday job, as we did back then when I was growing up in the late 70s. And, we all started at 14, basically, in our Saturday jobs. And came back from that, walked into my house, no message, no number, nothing. Race around the house, realize it's really happened. She's really done it. So what do? I go next door to the house she'd bought a couple of years before, and she was renting to college students. She answers the door, invites me in for a cup of tea, as you do, over to discuss anything in the British household. And she said, I'm done. I'm leaving. And I think moments in that, like that in your life, in your teenage years, really are that it's those tipping points. And the worst of it was, first of all, she was moving in with 3 hot college guys, which, was kind of nice for me, but very strange for me. And she didn't tell my dad. I had to tell my dad. So that story is something that when my daughter was in her teens at college, I was having my own marital issues, as you often do when your kids are going off to college or you've been married a long time. You're going through all these changes. You're looking at your life. What am I going to do for the next phase? My children are grown. What am I going to do? Which is what my mother's situation was. So you see these patterns reflecting or repeating themselves. And my job was to make sure I didn't repeat that pattern in the same way. And from that came the book, because there was a lot of self-exploration, self-reflection, and it really was a journey in writing a book where you have to go so deep and try and understand your own foundational relationship with your parents and how that has shaped you in this world, and how there are some decisions and many things they gave you that have really made you strong, or successful or brave or fearless. Um, but there are other things that you still hold deep within that you need to be able to let go of and move on to have a successful life. And that's where, when I say choice is very important. Um, and not to dwell in any negativity, particularly in the world we live in. And how can we have a better relationship and learn the lessons of um, mutual respect and interaction between parents and children, so that we again can speak truthfully and have a good relationship.
I couldn't emphasize enough on how important um, an influence of a parent is in a kid's life. Um, in the end of the day, I firmly believe that you can't control what your kid can do. You can, to a degree, influence what they're able to do, but at the end of the day, it's your example that they see, that they breathe in every day, that they are eventually going to probably lean towards or lean away from what they want to do. Like for my case scenario, there's certain things that I grew up in. I was born and raised in India, in a uh, like a joint family ish, the very dysfunctional, but
Yeah, I
joint
think most
family.
families are, and that's the truth. And
Uh,
we choose which family we come into to be born
exactly.
into.
Exactly. And so during that time, there's a lot of lessons I learned, and there's a lot of things I learned that I don't want to do with my family,
Right,
good or bad. There's certain things that I'm like, and at the end of the day, I still believe to this day that it was the example of my parents that make me go towards something or make me lean away from something I definitely don't want to do in my life. So those um, but I want to shift focus on your story now. How did the book come about, and like what was the when did you start the journey of being an author in those case scenario, and what made you write a book about those experiences? And my guess is it's about your book, like the book is about your experiences that you've had with your own mother.
yes. Um, it was a book that I was involved, and still am, in a lot of female empowerment and working with young girls, helping them find their voice, move through hard things. And every time I would do a workshop, and if someone was stuck, I would tell the story. You know, how my mother moved next door when I was 16 and got on with her life. Um, and people would laugh because I would tell it in a typical British fashion, which is with humor, which is actually how I write the book. Um, and the more I talked about it, the more people asked me to write the book. And so I sat down, and actually, I was also asked to, excuse me, do a treatment for a movie. And I started to do that, but I realized in Hollywood, everyone wants to change your story. And a very good friend of mine, um, a producer, actually said to me, write the book first, because there will always be the truth in the book. And the book will lead to many more things. And so I started writing the book. And to do so, I had to go really deep myself into my own memory bank.
Yeah.
I went back to England, saw old friends, met with my sister many a time to, try and understand different stories about my mother. Why did she do the things she did? What was her perspective? And I write in the beginning of the book, I have a half brother and sister from my mother's side of the family, and I have a sister from my dad. Because the other part of this story, which has many, many layers, which as you go into your own story, you discover, um, my mother was 45 and my dad was 60 when I was born, which was very rare at that time. So they had to bring these two teenage families together. So as I got into her story, I started writing the book one way, just simply from more my perspective and the years I grew up. But then I realized the importance of putting the whole backstory of how she grew up. Because when you understand someone else's story and put yourself in their shoes, you understand their behavior and how their behavior often is nothing to do with you, but it's about their experience. And so that was a really important thing. And also, I realized my mother, and I knew this to your point about how they model. My mother was fearless. She was doing things and living her life on her terms at a time when women weren't. And she was in her 60s. She was 60 when she left, 61, to start a whole new life. Now, however painful that is, to your other point, that showed me how she was being so truthful. Now she had felt she had taken care of her motherly duties, let's call it that. She wanted a new life and she wanted her career back. She wanted to go and do the things she wanted to do, which she couldn't do with my father. They weren't the right match ultimately. And so that taught me about living life in my truth. That taught me fearlessness. Um, and so as I wrote the book, however, and there's always elements of anger or pain or whatever that you're still feeling that you don't even realize you are, that come out as you write. So I would be laughing hysterically at some of the stuff, angry, yelling at her, crying at times, thinking how lucky I was to have such a loving, grounding father who was there. But also thinking how lucky I was to have a mother who taught me how to fly and take chances. So there were so many emotions that came up, so many new things I learned, and it helped me. I found, well, it helped me understand a lot of things, but I found this whole new respect and compassion for her. And it really led me to that point of then with my own daughter creating Mothers and Daughters Unfiltered, our intergenerational conversation podcast, but also creating some workshops for mother and daughters so daughters can see their mothers as women, as people who had dreams before they were born, dreams still while they were raising them, and have aspirations and dreams after they've left the coop.
Yeah.
So I think we all get something different out of writing and looking into our story. But it's that first step of owning it, self-reflection, and being willing to do that and give someone a break, because often we don't give our parents a break.
I think it's so true because we are so, and I've been guilty of this in the past for sure, that we are easy to blame, and
Mhm.
we are last one to take responsibility of our own actions. But um, I believe in most cases, not all, but most cases, if we were living the lives of parents were living, and they were in the circumstances, we were in the circumstances that they were in, I believe we will make the same choices that they did.
Yes.
Uh,
And,
uh,
that is such an important point, Harry, is understanding. And in our workshop, we have a section in what context did your mother become your mother? Who was her support system? How did those around her view motherhood? What was going on in her life, in her community, in society as a whole? I mean, every generation changes. My mum had been through the Second World War, lost a child, but she still had the ability to bring more children in the world, have a positive outlook, and not give up.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.